Hello my YouTube brothers and sisters. I took a little break from making my videos for a bit, but I'm back with yet another installment. If you've never had the opportunity to see what's going on with my channel, you have just tuned in to the Patriot Preacher. I'm Charles Wells, and I'm the Patriot Preacher. Please join me as we attempt to unravel and understand this crazy world with common sense and logic. So folks, the left is going absolutely crazy at the moment. It is the one thing they do extraordinarily well. Now, unless you completely don't listen to the news at all, then you've probably heard that an opinion, not a decision as yet, from the Supreme Court was leaked to the press and then, of course, subsequently on to the public about how Roe v. Wade, the widely debated decision from 1973 that federalized and allowed abortions to be performed nationwide, might be overturned. In many ways, Roe v. Wade is the centerpiece of liberalism in this country. Since this hotly debated decision almost 50 years ago, nearly 64 million abortions have been reported. There are, of course, some states that do not report all abortions. Abortions, by the way, is the second leading cause of death in the African American community, to give you some sense of how prevalent this practice has become, which is why 80% of all Planned Parenthood clinics are located in or near minority neighborhoods. If you would like to hear more about Planned Parenthood, by the way, please take a look at my video talking about aborting our future. Now, an interesting side note on all this upheaval is that since the peak in 1991, where nearly 1.5 million abortions were performed, they have been steadily falling each year since then. In 2020, abortions fell to the levels that they were back in 1973 when Roe v. Wade first became law, despite our population growing by more than a third. This indicates that many more women are deciding against abortion as time goes on. So if indeed the Supreme Court does decide to overturn Roe v. Wade, what does that mean exactly? Well, it doesn't mean that abortions will become illegal, which is what the left would have you believe. It doesn't mean that there will be backroom abortions done with coat hangers. And what it does mean is that the decision about abortion law will be determined by each state. In other words, the people will vote on what they believe abortion laws should look like where they live, which is how it should be. I personally find it highly doubtful that any state will completely outlaw abortion in this day and age, but rather severely limit it to the earliest stages of pregnancy, as Texas recently did. But, of course, the Supreme Court's leaked opinion isn't sitting well with leftist activists. As usual, they display aggressive and sometimes violent behavior. They are threatening to show up in front of the Supreme Court justices' homes that supported the decision. This is something only the left does, by the way. You will never see a group of conservatives directly confronting lawmakers or justices when decisions go against them, or threaten police officers when they have absolutely nothing to do with this decision. You don't see conservatives yelling in other people's faces or calling them names. So let's talk about the Supreme Court for a moment. The Supreme Court was established by Article 3 of the United States Constitution. The composition and procedures of the Supreme Court were initially established by the first Congress through the Judiciary Act of 1789. As later set by the Judiciary Act of 1869, the court consisted of the Chief Justice of the United States and 8 associate justices. Each justice has lifetime tenure, meaning they remain on the court until they die, retire, resign, or are removed from office. When a vacancy does occur, the president, whoever that is at the time, with the advice and consent of the Senate, appoints a new justice. Each justice has a single vote in deciding the cases argued before the court. When in the majority, the Chief Justice decides who will write the opinion for the court. Otherwise, the most senior justice in the majority assigns the task of writing the opinion to one of the other justices. Typically, the Supreme Court only hears cases that have a direct bearing on the clarification of the Constitution in some way or fashion. The Supreme Court was put in place as a co-equal branch of government to counterbalance the other two. The separation of powers of the executive branch, led by the president, the legislative branch, led by the houses of Congress, and the judiciary is a hallmark of our representative republic. Each justice is supposed to rule on cases that have a direct bearing on the spirit of the Constitution. They are supposed to remain true to their support of the Constitution. In fact, all lawmakers are. All elected officials, even officers and non-commissioned officers in the military, are supposed to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. We all swore an oath to do just that. But the Supreme Court in particular must remain faithful to the Constitution, or there's literally no reason for it to exist at all. Now, each Supreme Court justice is supposed to put the Constitution of the United States above their own personal opinions, personal beliefs, and political leanings. They are not to look to other nations' laws, international law, or common practices. In other words, they are supposed to be the ultimate constitutionalists. But the problem is that for a number of decades now, the Supreme Court has had a liberal majority, which meant that at times decisions were made contrary to the Constitution, to include Roe v. Wade. Liberal lawmakers could excuse themselves from making controversial and even unpopular decisions because they could depend on the court to make law for them, which is called legislating from the bench, which is not what these justices were ever intended to be doing by our founders. Legislators are supposed to make law based upon the will of the people, and the justices are supposed to interpret that law strictly according to the precepts of the Constitution. However, now, primarily because of the 3 constitutional judicial appointees made by President Trump during his time in office, for the first time in many years, we have a majority of justices that actually intend to do their jobs as they were designed to be performed. By interpreting law according to the Constitution, that is something that the left cannot abide by or agree with. You know, it's funny how the left in this country always point to the Constitution when it serves their purposes. But now all of a sudden, they don't believe in the power of the Supreme Court. They are saying that it is comprised of mostly white guys that shouldn't have any say as to what a woman does with her body, although it was certainly mostly white men in the court that instituted Roe v. Wade to begin with. And isn't it a bit ironic that the people who tout my body, my decision made a notable exception with the vaccine mandates during this pandemic? It seems that it's only our body when it suits them. The left is the first group of people to call others sexist or racist, yet it is perfectly acceptable for them to exclude others from having opinions either in the nation's highest court or in general if you don't possess the proper skin color or genitalia. So now, what do they propose? They are proposing that they pack the court. Now, I'm sure many of you may have heard this term, but not everyone is up to exactly what that means. After all, the left accused President Trump of packing the court, even though all he was really doing was performing his constitutionally appointed duty by naming new justices as they retired or passed away as he was supposed to do. What the left wants to do is increase the number of justices from 9, which it has been since 1789 when the court was established, to as many as 15. And of course, all these judges would be appointed by Joe Biden. And since it is a given that he would appoint activist judges to these positions, guaranteeing the left a virtual certain majority of the Supreme Court for at least another generation, perhaps 2, that, my learned friends, is packing the court. It gives them a bulletproof means of passing whatever they choose, no matter how radical and out of the mainstream thought something is. This is something they've been wanting to do for some time, just like they've been wanting to use the voting rights bill to ensure that people who aren't currently allowed to vote can, and to use mail-in ballots as a means to take what they can't earn. Just like they want to add 4 more Senate seats by making Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states. In other words, what they can't get done by competing in the arena of ideas, they will do by whatever means is necessary for the consolidation of their power base. This is the nature of the new Democratic Party, folks. And for my brothers and sisters on that side of the aisle, I hope you wake up soon, because if these and other initiatives they have in store are successful, this country will very soon be unrecognizable, and we, for all practical purposes, will have a one-party state, which never ends well. The competition of ideas is the only way a true republic can survive. The answer to bad ideas are good ideas. The answer to reprehensible speech is redeeming and uplifting speech. Less speech is never the answer. You know, sometimes it amazes me how much effort the left puts into the death of our children. It puts more effort into killing the unborn than keeping families together, than keeping our borders safe, in protecting our Judeo-Christian values, in ensuring inflation doesn't make families homeless, than using our own natural resources to prevent being dependent on the resources of tyrannical dictatorships. As they often do, they are putting all their proverbial eggs in one basket, hoping beyond hope that the abortion issue will activate and galvanize their base in the face of possible landslide defeats because of the havoc that their ill-informed and misguided policies has caused the citizenry of this great nation. Well, folks, it's time again for me to sign off for the moment. Please take the time to do your own research into all the matters that we discuss here on this channel. I hope that all of you and your families are well and that you have God in your life. He is, after all, the one who created all life, and to include the most innocent of all life, our unborn children. If you like what we discussed today, please add some cogent comments to this video, get notifications of new content, and of course, most importantly, hit that little subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Please take care, and God bless you all.